The Visual Basics system is exciting to say the least. It until you get into it and see what it can do, there isn't a whole lot of excitement. But once you begin to see how effective it is, the system just amazes you. And along to increase its effectiveness and to make it, we are trying to make it the greatest system on the planet. And so far, we think we're succeeding, but we're continually looking for ways to improve it. One of the things that we ran into years ago was the ability to quickly recognize indicators on the radar screen. And I'm going to show you some indicators here on the screen. I have, remember, in the radar screen, you can only put 30 indicators on the screen. Each one of those indicators is qualifies by example. I mean, the symbol is one column. You can use 30 columns. Interval is one column. Last is one column. The shares column is basically a indicator that I put together. You can make it more complex than I did, but I wanted to keep it basic with running through the theme of what DTVB is all about. And so what you can do is you can open up the indicator, and you'll see a spot where it's you have so many dollars will be represented. Like I think I've established 10,000 as, and the reason is because that's what I usually use. So in other words, I enter a position with $10,000 worth of money, and you can set that number at whatever you want, and then utilize that for your trade. What this basically is telling us right here is that I can, with $10,000, I can buy 65 shares of Netflix. With Microsoft, I can buy 142 shares of Microsoft for $10,000. And then, of course, you usually round off. Like, I'd probably, if I decided to buy Microsoft, I'd probably buy 150 shares. You get the idea. The next indicator, this is one indicator within a master indicator. And this master indicator is right there. And you can see that there are all of the indicators from the 22 market force recognition indicators. And to keep it simple, I just made the title really long. When you have two indicators that are equal, you get a yellow box. When the indicators are up and down, the text is red or green. And when you have a crossover zero, you get a red box or a green box, meaning crossover or cross under. So it keeps it pretty simple. This is probably one of the most popular indicators on the radar screen when you're for a variety of reasons. And I think they'll become obvious as you look at the thing. Like right now here on the third one, it's BKCC, and we have about 10 or whatever that number is of red boxes. And so what it's telling us is that those lines are crossing under zero. And the lines that I like to look at most often for the crossover are right here in the power lines, because the power lines are your primary price relationship cycle change indicators. For example, when power red goes over zero, you are generally in an uptrend. When it goes under zero, you are generally in a downtrend. So BKCC is starting into a downtrend, in my opinion, at this point. It could have been going down for several days before power red crossed over zero, but on this day we have a significant cross. And it's currently at $7.52. When you have a yellow box, though the last 2 days have been equal, for example, Netflix and Microsoft are both at 100, but it tells you it's the first day because a yellow box means they're equal. And so your yellow box at 100 means it's been at 100 for at least 2 days. Or if it's at zero for at least 2 days. Otherwise, it's a first day situation with zip green in the zip green column. Now, another column that we have is another super indicator is the 7 short-term trend lines. There are 5 columns in it. I used the trend yellow to indicate the trend trio column. All of them go up at the same time. All of them cross over at the same time. So there was only a need for 5 columns. And I chose yellow because it was closest to zero, both when it is above zero and when it is under zero. And so the 7 short-term trend lines, those 5 columns are one indicator, even though there's multiple columns. And that way you can put in multiple indicators up to a total of 30 in the system. And with the red box on the 7 short-term trend lines, the red box indicates the line, the particular indicator line is down, and the particular indicator line is up when you have a green box. And when you have the white text, it means that the indicator line is above zero, and when you have a dark red text, it means that the indicator line is under zero. So this is a real fast way to see where you're at. Here's a classic example of when I say trend red the trend trio is faster than the other 4 trend lines. Trend trio is in dark red and the other 4 are in white text. And so it tells us that those 4, even though they're down, they're all above zero, whereas trend trio is down and under zero. And so there's probably more to the downturn. There's just a lot of information that you can pick up off of these charts that seem like they're not much, but they're really powerful. The other fantastic thing about the radar screen is that they're instantaneous. If you look at these indicators at the open, you'll see instantly which direction things are going. I mean, bam, at the very moment that it's turned on, you see the change. And what that tells you is when you get all 5 lines that have turned green, you're going into an uptrend. And you're probably in a BOC pattern, especially if you notice that some of them were red before the open. So there's just a lot of information on the charts, but one of the biggest and most powerful aspects of the radar screen is its instant ability to identify change. You know that's a concern in the radar screen, in the scanner, because you have to have a closed candle. And this is why when we do scans for gaps, obviously if you've got something that's going to gap, you have to find it before the gap. To do that, the 6.5 hours that the trading exchanges are open can be divided into 390 minutes. If you go to 300 minutes, or a 300-minute interval on your radar screen, that would be like right over here. This is on the daily. You can change that to 330 minutes or 300 minutes or 200 minutes, whatever number that you want to use start searching for your gaps. And then you get a closed candle, and that's when the scanner can read the information as a closed candle. And then say you run everything at 1 o'clock, so you're 2 hours before the close. I'm in Central Time here in Minnesota, so the bell closes at 3. So you can get a closed candle that way and find the gaps. You can look in these radar screens, and for example, you can determine all of what I've showed you here so far, but when we get back to this section, you can see the 22 market force indicators that are sitting here, and each one of them is identifying a particular shaped pattern. The blue pattern, first off, let me do it that way. The yellow pattern, the yellow box. These are box color column alerts. The yellow box is a high M higher pattern. If you see any oranges, they are a high M lower pattern, like right here. Then if you see a pink, that is a right leg W higher. If you see a light pink, that is a right leg W lower. And then of course your green line, or your green boxes are your BOC patterns, and your red boxes are your TOC patterns, and your blues are in a bottlenose pattern, and if you get a light blue, then you're in like a 3-day up or a 3-day down. And again, if you're familiar with the system, you know that 3-day up indicators travel with bottlenoses up. And so, but we like to see a few bottlenoses. The bottlenose is 3 days up as well, but it has a low angle up in the middle of it. And they're typically a reversal pattern. And so each one of these, however, is one indicator. When I press on the header, I only get one indicator. And the reason is because of the amount of code that has to go into it. It was possible to put 3 or 4 of them together, but for potentially future code changes, it just made it a lot more convenient to do one at a time. And so you have 22 market force recognition indicators sitting here, and they can be loaded up, whichever ones you want to load up, or you can load up all of them and use them primarily to identify identical indicators, because like you can see down here in number 9, they're blue now, but all those ones that are dark blue have the same shape of pattern, and that's quite a few. And so it's definitely over 12, and so that would be worth looking at, or could be worth looking at, and then it would be based on or based on a quick look back. If you went back here and you looked at this particular indicator, you have all 5 green boxes in the short-term trend. So that gives you just a lot of information. And then your green boxes over here in the master, I should give that some kind of name, but because I had a problem with defining I wanted to have a quick reference that told you what the box color alert was. And so I chose to do it this way here, but it's basically a general radar screen column grid system that will give you those indicators that are equal, obviously those indicators that are up or down with the text, and the crossover indicators. And so the crossover being a green box and the cross under being a red box. Excuse me. And so there's just a lot of information that can be gathered here in the in this particular. I've just got these three here running together. There are several other radar screen indicators that we've built for different purposes. We've got a pair of them with the up touches and the down touches and others. The one thing that I'll point out to you here, this is from the box color code alerts. If you go to the definitions column on the home page, a few lines down, you'll run into the box color codes, and all of those are listed here. Now this happens to be the individual one I'm going to move this over here a second here. This is the one that I'm referring to that I have open at the moment. And this particular one here references this particular indicator right here. And it tells you that you have a BOC. Oops, wait a minute, I'm on the wrong one. I did that exactly the opposite. This one here is on the individual ones. When you have the individual ones, these are the individual market force recognition box color alerts. When you have a BOC, you have a green box, as you can see here. And when you have a top of cycle, you have a red box, a bottlenose or a blue box with white text. And a bottlenose down is a blue box with dark red text. And so you can identify exactly what direction things are going with. Actually, right over here in the zip green, we have a bottlenose going down, and zip green is at 45. So the high M's are a yellow box. The orange, the high M right peak lower is an orange box. Your right leg W is a pink box. Right leg W lower is a light pink box. They're all disclosed in these color codes. There's the 7 short-term trend lines. The white text is above 0. The dark red text is under 0. And then, of course, red and green boxes are up and down. And then here's the first indicator that I showed you. And the important thing about this, I mean, the red text is the indicator line down and the green text line up. The green box is a crossover. I'm going to move us over to that indicator while I'm talking here. And looking at this indicator, you can see the yellow alert box means they're equal, as I talked about before. But the important thing I want you to realize is right down here. This is strictly in the price, the three price lines: price green, price red, and price blue. These are divergent recognition crossovers. They're not just the up-down stuff. You know which way the line is going by the text. When you have a green, for example, in the green box, it's when price green crosses over red. Now what that means is price green was lowest and it crossed over red. So a crossover is by definition a divergence with it, especially within the price lines. Now, why is that important? That's because the three price lines record the price. They run with it, they track it, they go exactly the direction that the price goes. And if one of them is, they're each, obviously because they're not the same line, they're each drafted in a different formula code-wise. And when one of those tiny movements goes divergent, when green is at the bottom and it crosses over and becomes highest on the top, you've got typically a very strong movement that day and potentially the following day, depending on your supporting evidence. The same is true with the price red column. When price red crosses over price green, you're in a green box. And when it crosses under, you're in a red box. On the blue column, it's a little bit different because blue is lowest, and didn't want to, I wanted you to think in up and down terms as I would naturally. And in your blue box, your blue is as shown on the header, it's a red crossover blue or a red cross under blue. And so in each case, a green box that you may see in the price green, red, or blue columns is a crossover or price up. And when it's in a blue with white text, it is a cross under box or divergent condition. And so I can't overemphasize the importance of divergence. There are just dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of examples and different ways in one day or multiple days, in lines, in patterns, just types. There's just so many, I don't even know how to number them. But there's, I'm sure, over 100 that you could probably play with and come up with. Those divergent conditions are very important. When one line is telling you that the pressure or the force within that stock is going down, and another line tells you that the forces within that stock are going up, something is pushing and is screwed up. Or that might not be the way to say it, but you've got two opposing forces, and something's going to pop when you have that. And if they might be opposing for just a few hours, and as a result, you get a small movement the next day, or they might end the day in a huge opposition and be a big candle the next day. Those divergent conditions are one of the things that we recognize as extremely important, especially when you're dealing with sensitive indicators that can identify tiny market force movements or pressure changes. And so it's just really powerful, much more powerful than you'd see it in standard indicators, because most of those won't even tell you about won't even allow you to see the divergence. So a lot of information in these particular three. I picked these three just to show you some other stuff about and identify what you're looking for. I mean, these 22 market force recognition indicators, these individual indicators, you can run through 300 stocks so quickly and find the highest counts very fast. It's all color coded. It's easy to do. It's quick. And as you're trading, you can look and see what your trend trio is doing. I mean, because sometimes it's hard to verify quickly things that you're looking at, and for me personally, it becomes much clearer if I can look at it on the radar screen as far as telling me direction and location. I mean, I can look at all 7 of them, boom, without having to do it in different directions on the chart. And don't misunderstand me, because you need that high visibility on the charts as well, but this is really fast. And that's what it's all about when you're in the thick of things, making decisions, analyzing different opportunities, whatever it might be. You need to be able to accomplish your goal quickly. So these 3 examples in the radar screen are just simply fantastic. They're obviously with gaps, you want to be able to identify the identical indicators, and this one does it, are the 22 market force recognition indicators do that. And then, of course, we have other indicators that we'll show and talk about on a few other videos. But the color codes for all of those are listed, and you can pull those off. They're in a text format under the color codes underneath the definitions column on the main website homepage. So thanks for listening. Hope this video was informative and gave you the information that you were looking for. There, like I mentioned, we have other radar screen pre-built screens that would be very helpful. Again, depending on your style, what you're looking for, and the number of monitors that you have, so that you can keep all of this information visible while you're doing whichever type of activity you're doing. Amazing, isn't it?